Yeah, I was just dreaming. It was weird. It was like a dream within a dream.
A nightmare.
And you couldn't wake up?
Nope, it was beyond terrifying. Sometimes your mind can wake up before your body does. So for the split second, you're actually aware that your body's paralyzed. And that's the terrifying part.
Blackouts, sleepwalking, which you do a lot as a kid. Also having some really bad anxiety.
How many hours of sleep are you getting?
8.
A night?
The last 3 days.
I don't know if Isaac is dying right now. What are you doing here?
What's happening?
You're dealing with the kind of spirit that's lived too long to play by human rules. It's a fox spirit.
What did it do?
You think you could save him?
Well, maybe it's a message from Styles. The real Styles.
It's not a message from Styles. It's a threat from the Nogitsune.
Really, Melissa?
Werewolves, berserkers. I can easily add a Nogitsune to the list.
To me, it's what we do when we're bored.
I'm not gonna shoot my son.
For the blacktop, and it makes me.
That's not your son.
It's been a long time coming, and the tables turn around. 'Cause one of us is going, one of us is going down. I'm not running. It's a little. I'm 1,000 years old. You can't kill me. One of us is going. One of us is going.
This is going to be my Teen Wolf 3B finale and 3B review, and, you know, just talking general Teen Wolf goodness. Okay, so I really enjoyed the 3B finale, guys, and I have to say, looking back on this season as a whole, I have to say it's probably, like, one of my favorites in terms of what they did with the characters, but the story for this season was the weakest, I feel. I feel like it was not as strong as the first 2 seasons and 3A. I think that those stories were strong, they had, you know, great messages, they had epicness involved in the stories themselves, and even the villains were awesome, and I do think that the Nogitsune was a fantastic, villain. But I feel like the story involving the Nogitsune and the Kitsunes was the weakest. I just thought it was weak sauce, guys. I did not think it was Jeff playing at his strongest, and I do feel like there were a lot of things this season that just weren't explained. You know, I kind of gave that little tiny bit of a gripe about Season 2. You know, I love Season 2, I love the Season 2 finale, I think it was incredibly done, but the thing about Season 2 is that there were all these questions building up, and then they just kind of threw all the answers at us in the end, and then they did a whole Deus Ex Machina, let's poison Gerard by having Scott be a secret genius all of a sudden type deal. But in the end, I was still satisfied with it because we got a conclusion. Whereas with this finale, there are things that are just left open and that, you know, they don't really 100% answer. You know, the biggest thing for me is how the Nogitsune put them all in that dream scenario. Basically, in the ending finale, they talk about how they need a divine move to help kind of turn the tables and take down the Nogitsune. And, you know, the Nogitsune basically places them all in this false scenario, like an illusion in all of their heads, of Styles, Lydia, Kira and Scott, he places all four of them in like this weird kind of illusion scenario where they're in this Japanese garden and it's snowing and they're surrounded by, you know, Oni and they're being attacked and they're fighting. And then Styles basically realizes that this whole thing is an illusion, and then they break out of it and then they're okay. And they realize that the Nogitsune's plot this whole time was basically to get Scott to kill Styles and essentially win the game. But they never explain how the Nogitsune was able to place them in that illusion. I mean, a lot of people are saying that that's just one of his powers, but if he has the ability to place multiple people in this false illusion world, why wouldn't he just do that to Derek and the twins? I mean, why not use the real Oni to force Scott to kill Styles while making Derek and the twins fight an illusion? That seems a lot more useful. I mean, Derek and the twins have the cylinder box that could be used to capture him and contain him. They're the bigger threat, okay? These other idiots running around, you know, they're not really a big threat because their whole plan depends on catching you, and you're not even in the building. You know, I would just basically have them chasing their tails with Oni and, you know, give them those instructions of, you know, Scott kill Styles and I'll make this whole thing end, or I'll kill you all, and have Derek and the twins chasing their tails fighting imaginary Oni in an illusion. So, like, his ultimate plan wasn't well thought out in terms of prioritizing who was the bigger threat, and it never explained how he was able to cast them in that illusion. I was really hoping they were going to talk about how maybe he was pumping Wolfsbane into like the air conditioning system of the school or something, or how like when they opened the doors, like maybe like there was like a trap set that just like dropped a bunch of Wolfsbane on them and then they all started hallucinating, because we know that Wolfsbane can cause hallucinations. So, you know, why not? I mean, you know, last season with Jennifer, she kind of had that weird, you know, kind of you know, Duroc ability to get inside people's heads and make them see stuff. You know, it's even implied that she is projecting a false illusion of herself when she makes herself appear normal, but she basically talks about how that's one of her abilities, you know, like her ability to make herself look normal, to make people see whatever she wants. That's just one of her Duroc abilities. She talks about how it takes power to do that, so that was explained, but they never tell you how the Nogitsune was able to make them all see that illusion, and that's a pretty big flaw to me. I mean, like, if this is one of his powers, why haven't we seen him use it before? I just didn't like that. Another thing that wasn't really explained was like the chessboard that had Derek on it. I mean, you know, Peter talks about how that's not the game of Japanese Fox, that's Styles' game, but they never explained why was that chessboard there. Why were their names on it? Why was Derek the king? Why any of that? Why was any of that there? I mean, if it was placed there for a reason, why was it placed there for a reason? They never went into the chessboard why it was there. They never said, as far as I remember, they never explained who sent Allison the message of Oak Creek. Did we ever even find out who sent Allison that message that was like a recording for Oak Creek? Did we ever find out who sent her that message? I don't even remember. They never fully explained William Barrow's connection to the Nogitsune. I mean, there's a lot of implications. He was interned at Aiken House, and that's where the Nogitsune's remains are, and we see him using his flies to manipulate Oliver, so it's implied that he did the same thing to William Barrow. But, you know, they never really fully went into that. I feel like they could have. I just feel like this story was just the weakest one. I mean, like, Kira's mom being a 900-year-old kitsune and all that, again, I still don't buy it. I mean, you know, like, her not knowing that the Nogitsune could jack the Oni by breaking one of her tails. You know, her, you know, not really knowing how to take down the Oni or the Nogitsune. She was just clueless about everything, and I don't expect her to be like a walking, talking encyclopedia of the supernatural. I just expect her to know more than what she does know, which is apparently nothing. I mean, again, she's a 900-year-old kitsune. I just don't get it. Another thing I don't get is how, you know, she's 800 years old, 80 years ago in the internment camp, and she looks exactly like Kira, and she's a teenager. But then, 80 years later, when we're in present day, she looks like she's in her 40s. I don't understand what caused her to age that much in the last 80 years. People are kind of, you know, inferring that, oh, maybe when she had Kira, she started aging or whatever, and I don't even buy that. So you're telling me 800 years prior to that, she didn't have one kid? I mean, like, it just, there's so many things that just weren't explained that didn't really make sense. I mean, I don't get it. Like, how she doesn't fight when the Oni are, like, jacked from her. She doesn't really do anything. She just kind of sits back and does nothing. I mean, at least Allison's dad, you know, he comes into the fight. I mean, like, what was Kira's mom doing? Nothing. And, like, out of all these years, she's never replaced that stupid samurai sword that was broken when the Nogitsune broke it. I mean, like, I don't get it. I just don't get it. And none of that was explained. And people are like, oh, well, Kira's mom couldn't because the more tails she breaks, the more human she becomes. When her last tail is broken, she's human and kind of useless. The show never explains that, okay? And I'm not going to just start making excuses when the show has given me great expletive before, and it's given me great, good, cohesive stories. Why am I going to start making excuses for it? It's like, why isn't Kira's mom fighting? And she's just standing in the background looking stupid. And then it's like, you know, why has Kira's mom aged all this time? Oh, because she had Kira. I'm not going to assume that. I'm not going to assume that she's becoming more human with every tail that's broken. I'm not going to assume that she's suddenly aged this much over the last 80 years because she had a child. And I'm not going to just assume that she's just, oh, so naive about all this bullshit because she's 900 years old. I just can't. How does Deaton, who, you know, he's a druid and everything like that, so it's kind of implied that he has to know this stuff, but I mean, she's again been walking the earth for 900 years. I expect her to know more than nothing. I mean, I don't get it. I just don't get it. Kira's mom, that's why Kira's mom's character is really annoying to me, because she's an idiot. All of the problems this season stem from her stupid decisions and her just having no clue how to control or take down anything she summons. I mean, I don't get it. And again, you know, like, for anyone who knows the kind of, I don't want to call it sordid, but messed up sort of history in Japan's past. If she was alive for 800 years in Japan and then, you know, went through the whole World War II process and of internment and stuff like that, which was horrible when you really think about it, and those horrible events that happened in the camp, shit like that actually did go down. I mean, I don't understand how she never ever felt the need to summon a Nogitsune. I mean, this is back in the olden days of samurais and warriors and emperors and shit like that, where it was pretty much Game of Thrones Japanese version or something, you know what I mean? Like, it was a crazy time to be alive, and she went through 800 years of that, and like, she's never summoned a Nogitsune before. I just don't buy it. I thought that was just the weakest story. The Nogitsune was a fantastic villain. I really love the Nogitsune. I know I kind of harped about, you know, why is he appearing as the burned up guy that he possessed, but I love that look, honestly. That Nogitsune look is forever seared into my brain with the silver teeth and the bandages. And, you know, I love the walk, how they manipulated the footage and how the actor walked, you know. I just love his creepiness, his freakiness, the way he looked, the way he talked. And I also love how he is the antithesis to, like, all the previous villains who were just, like, so human. You understood why they were doing what they were doing. You know, like, in the first season, Peter was doing it for power and revenge. In the second season, Matt was doing it for revenge. And then Gerard was doing it for survival. In the third season, or 3A, Deucalion was doing what he was doing for power. Jennifer was doing what she was doing for revenge. It's really been all about power, revenge, or survival. But this season, there was no reason for any of this. The Nogitsune was just doing all of this because it was a giant game to him. He wanted to cause chaos, destruction, strife, and pain and all this, and there was no plan. There was no reason. You know, there was no reason. It was so great because he's like the Joker in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of comparisons there, in my opinion, with like the Nogitsune, his villainy, why he's doing this, and Dylan O'Brien's epic portrayal of this villain. It's so much like Heath Ledger in the Joker. It's so insane. I love Dylan's portrayal of Void Styles. Fantastic. I have to say my favorite part in the finale is when you know, the Void Styles is like closing in on Lydia and regular Styles, and he's just like, you know, divine move, you don't have any moves left at all, you can kill the Oni, but me, I'm 1,000 years old, you can't kill me. And he just like, that intensity had me just like going like this, and it was just like, holy crap. I felt like he was coming out of the screen talking to me. Like, it was so intense. Dylan did such an incredible job. I mean, Jeff must have been so eerily just like creeped out when they did Wolf Watch. He basically kind of complimented Dylan on just like what he brought to the dark Void Styles character and like what he did with it. And I absolutely loved scenes where we got to hear Dylan deliver dialogue as Void Styles. It's one of the reasons why the episode where they think they've captured him or whatever, and they go inside his head and they separate Void Styles from regular Styles, is one of my favorite parts, and one of my favorite episodes, because like that one had like the most Void Styles dialogue. And I just love how he was doing all of this just for the hell of it, just for the fun of it. He was just fucking with them, killing people, doing all this horrible stuff for no real reason, you know, it just for nothing. nothing. It was just for fun. I just think that that was just like the sickest, darkest, twisted thing because, like I said in the past, they've all had reasons. You know, all the villains and all the monsters have had reasons for doing what they're doing. And even the Candyman in season 2 was just a mindless slave, just a killing machine. You know, no real reason for doing what he was doing, but except following orders, doing what he had to do because he had to. You know, I love that. The origins of the Nogitsune really annoy me. I mean, we never find out how the Nogitsune came to be what it is, how our Dark Kitsune is created or born or whatever. He says he's 1,000 years old, meaning that he has an origin. 1,000 years ago, how did he come into being? I'm fine with not knowing how. That mystery is kind of what makes it cool. But the fact that, like, you know, like Peter mentions that, like, Kitsunes can only choose to become human every 100 years. But then Kira's mother say that Kitsunes can summon Nogitsunes. So I don't, like, Nogitsunes can choose to be human after 100 years, but then like Kitsunes have to summon them. Kira's mom says that, so they don't even really clearly define what the rules are for the Nogitsune. They never really understood, like, told you definitively why it chose Styles. I mean, like, again, I know I harp on about this, but like, why did it choose Styles out of all three of them? It never chose why. I was really hoping for a moment when the Nogitsune was going to compliment Styles' smarts, you know, when the Nogitsune was going to say basically like Styles was the smartest out of all three of them. Styles had the most potential, and Styles' mind and his way of thinking and just, you know, his brilliance essentially is what made him the perfect candidate for Nogitsune possession. How his mind and his words and everything he does is like his strongest attribute, and that's why the Nogitsune chose him. But the Nogitsune never says that. It never goes into detail as to why it chose Styles specifically. I was really hoping it was going to tie into Styles' mother and her disease, and how maybe, like, he does have her disease, and that disease kind of made him mentally susceptible to Nogitsune possession, and that's why it chose him once his door was opened. And, you know, when they did that scan and saw that, you know, he had the same disease and that, you know, frontotemporal dementia, and his mind was going through atrophy, I was thinking, oh, so because he has that disease, that kind of made him perfect for the Nogitsune possession, you know, because he was, like, mentally unstable. But they never went into detail with that, and they even implied that, like, the Nogitsune was creating that disease inside of Styles to mess with him. What? I mean, like, it was the weakest story. I mean, like, you know, why didn't it choose Scott? Scott is a true alpha. All that power, I mean, like, no one could have stopped him. But no, doesn't it explain that? And people are saying, oh, well, it had to have been a human. So then why not choose Allison? She's a trained hunter. She has access to all these weapons. I mean, like, and she's pretty smart, too. If 3A proved anything, it's that Allison is perfectly capable and intelligent in her own right. And aside from all of her intelligence, she's got kick-ass fight training and an arsenal at her freaking house. Why didn't it choose her? And the show never tells you. And please don't go saying, oh, it's so obvious, it's so this, it's so that. Because it's not. The show never tells you why. I mean, you know, it was great seeing this happen to Styles because, as I said, Styles' wit and his smarts is his greatest attribute. So seeing him lose his mind is so effective and so incredible. But losing your mind for any of them would be so incredible. I mean, Scott is having, you know, insecure issues with himself because he doesn't know if he can control this new alpha power inside of him. So seeing him lose his mind would have been incredibly powerful because it's like he doesn't know if he can control himself. He'll kill someone. He'll just lose it. I mean, that would have been effective. Allison losing her mind. We've seen her in the past. She's so insecure about survival and protecting herself and protecting her friends. And then she nearly shoots Lydia in the head with an arrow when she's hallucinating about Kate. So her losing her mind would have been even crazier also. Like, she doesn't know who's the enemy and who's friend. You know, because she's just so mentally messed up. Seeing any of them lose their minds would have been so effective. Seeing Styles lose his mind is effective, but seeing Scott and Allison lose their minds would have been just as effective. I mean, and they were all losing their minds in their own way in the beginning because they talked about, you know, the doorway to Bardo, but that got thrown away as soon as they brought in the Kitsune no Gitsune plot. I mean, the story was kind of choppy, and there were questions that just were not answered, and stuff that was just left open. Now, I do like Kira, don't get me wrong. New addition to the show. I think Malia has incredible, potential for the future, and I do want to see Styles and Malia in a relationship, just to see if Styles will just pop his freaking cherry, because I'm so sick of him being the only guy on this show, the only character on this entire show who's a virgin, and again, like, the only guy who's never taken off, the only, like, teenage boy or whatever who's never taken off his shirt. I mean, like, again, like, I'm not dying to see Dylan with his shirt off or anything. I'm really not, because I've seen it before. If you guys want to know how, like, there's a movie he did the first time with Burt Robertson. It's not a bad movie. I actually really enjoyed it. It's about kind of like the awkwardness of teenagers and kind of getting infatuated at first sight and falling for someone, and like losing your virginity for the first time. How it's not this beautiful romantic thing. How it's often very complicated, very weird, very awkward, and how your first time often sucks. It's not this awesome thing. In that sense, it was a well-done film, but yeah, he has kind of like a love scene with, Burt Robertson, and he takes off his shirt and everything, and, it wasn't a big deal. It was like, whatever, I don't care. But Teen Wolf, like, the whole point of the show, really, at times, it seems, is to get as many shirtless guys in as you can, and Styles is, like, the only one who hasn't, and he's never had a girlfriend, and, whenever he has a love interest, they're in, and then they're gone, and they treat him like he's kind of disposable. I mean, it feels, in a lot of ways, that they're kind of discriminating against Styles' character. I mean, they give him awesome scenes, but when it comes to personal relationships, outside of his dad and Scott, he really doesn't have any. I mean, he has his relationship with Derek, but, again, we've talked about this. That is not a friendship. That's just kind of like they deal with each other and they care about each other, but in the end, they're not really friends. Him and Allison have kind of an estranged relationship. Have they ever really been friends? Have they ever really talked? Him and Lydia, they care about each other and everything, but Lydia never gives him the time of day. We all know this. I mean, the twins come in the door and she latches on to freaking Aiden. She never gives Styles a chance. And people are kind of theorizing that maybe it's because she feels kind of like a more stronger relationship to Styles, to the point where she doesn't really want to bring sex into the mix immediately, because she feels kind of like a kinship and connection with him. And I definitely do kind of see that, but ultimately it's just kind of like, okay, look, enough is enough. We've been waiting for this crap for too long. Lydia and Styles have been just like building up. There's so many people that want to see Lydia and Styles get together. I do kind of want to see them together a little bit, but not really anymore so much, because I think that if they get together, it would be just kind of boring. I mean, I want to see them go through their own arcs, honestly, and I want to see them find other people. I really don't want to see them together, because if they did add romance and sex and whatever into the mix with Lydia and Styles, I feel like now, at this point, it would just kind of downgrade their relationship. I mean, like, I want to see them actually connect with each other on like an emotional and spiritual level with each other before anything becomes romantic. Because if the reason why she hasn't actually given Styles a time of day and had sex with him and actually been with him is because she feels this kind of connection with him, then immediately throwing sex into the mix would just immediately render the whole thing null and void. So I really hope that Lydia and Styles' relationship just does get built, but until then, I feel like they are kind of discriminating against Styles just slightly. And with all the bullshit he went through this season, I think he deserves a girlfriend. That being said, again, following up on that, all the stuff that Styles went through this season, I really hope that they don't throw that away next season. That is the biggest thing that I really hope that the writers don't do, that I'm really afraid they will do, is that they'll just throw away what happened to Styles this season to make room for what's happening this coming season. It really bothers me when shows do that. It's like you had your character get possessed, hurt, and kill people, and then go through that weird ritual where they separated him and the Nogitsune, which I'll get to, but going through all of that, I don't see how we can just go completely back to normal. And I'm not talking about post-traumatic stress or anything like that. I'm talking about full-on him still having a little bit of Nogitsune inside of him. Like, because I just don't see, like, the Nogitsune coughing him up, and he's the one who rose from the bandages and the smoke and all that craziness. I mean, like, him going completely 100% normal after that would make no sense. And here his mom even mentions, "You're more you than a Nogitsune," implying that maybe he still has some Nogitsune left in him. So I really want to see what happens with that. Like, will Styles be 100% normal? Will he still have a little bit of Nogitsune left in him? You don't have to touch on it completely this season, but if you just give us, like, just one scene where Styles talks about how he does kind of have, like, nightmares where he remembers what he did when he was a Nogitsune and it still messes him up, and then have, like, one scene where he does something that's kind of out of the ordinary, and, like, you leave the audience wondering whether or not he's still completely 100% human, and then you can touch on that, like, in 4B or in Season 5 if you want to. Now, like I was saying, the whole thing where they separated good and, like, good Styles and evil Styles, I actually was kind of disappointed in that. I was really hoping that, like, the final scene of the show was going to be like, they like once we found out that Styles was possessed, I was really hoping he was going to be possessed throughout, like, the whole season, and then, like, in the finale they were going to find a way to get the Nogitsune out of him without killing him, and then it was going to be left up in the air as to whether or not he was a werewolf or not, and in the end it's like the Nogitsune is out of him and he's not a werewolf. That maybe they managed to turn the Nogitsune, but then the Nogitsune jumped outside of Styles and kind of took the lycanthropy with it or something when it jumped out of him. That would have been interesting, but instead they just completely separate him from the Nogitsune. Literally, they, like, clone him pretty much, and then have the Nogitsune walking around in a clone Styles body that turns to that gets buffied, turns to dust as soon as it gets stabbed in the heart with a sword. Again, the story wasn't very powerful with that, like with their resolution of the Nogitsune. I feel like it was a little anticlimactic, like the fly, zzz, and Isaac comes out of nowhere with a box. It's okay, guys, I got it. I caught the fly. But in the end, I think the Nogitsune was a great villain. I think that this story was the weakest. I still think that the events that happened this season were very powerful. I do like Malia and Kira. I just feel like the story, it needed to be worked on a little bit more. I mean, like, if I did it, I would not have made Kira's mom 900 years old. I would have made her, like, 90 or 100, and then she talks about how kitsunes age at a slower rate than humans. Exactly, see, like, and even that, I would buy. Like, even that, I would buy her summoning the Nogitsune because she was just a stupid teenager, she had never suffered such pain and such loss, and then she did, and then she summoned the Nogitsune. I mean, like, even that would have been better. And I would also even understand Kira's mom not knowing how to stop the Oni, and not knowing that he could break her tail and take the and taking the Oni from her, because again, she's like 90 years old, like she's old, but she's never really done anything like this before, and that would make sense. And then, her breaking the tails or whatever, how she has 9 tails. I mean, like, in the mythos, basically just talks about, like, how every 100 years she gets a new tail. Just alter it up. I mean, like, what you did with Kanimas in Season 2, that is nothing like they are in lore. I mean, why suddenly are we worried about sticking to, actual myth? I mean, your werewolves, like, you talked about their origins in Season 3A, and that was great that you did that, but, like, again, I'm gonna keep going back to Kanimas, because Kanimas are absolutely nothing like what you painted them as in Season 2A, but I love what you did with Kanimas, so change up your kitsunes and make them more than just these super Mary Sues. Loved the new villain, but ultimately the story was choppy. My absolute favorite performance of this entire show, of Dylan O'Brien playing the Void Styles. I think that it's the best performance this show has delivered, and he is the most talented actor of the bunch. This season totally proved that. I am really looking forward to what's coming next season. I've watched the trailer and it looks really well. I really, am interested in the Benefactor. Kate coming back was absolutely fucking insane because I love Joe Wagner. I think that she is amazing. I love watching Wolf Watch just because she's just so, hi everyone, it's Wolf Watch, and I'm like, I love watching you host, Jill. I love it. So yeah, I'm really excited to see her come back. I can already tell from the trailers that her and Derek are gonna hook back up, if anything, just for sex. Styles and Malia are definitely gonna evolve. You see a scene where they're making out. We're gonna get some new characters next season, and ultimately, the show just brings in new characters that it either kills off or gets rid of by the end of the season. And I have no problem with that. Circulate these characters, man. Do it. I got no problem with it, as long as they don't convolute the story. As long as they don't convolute and just take up screen time. I really want to see what happens with Malia and Peter, like when she finds out that he's her father and all the horrible stuff he's done. I really want to find out why Derek's mom took that memory. Like, that's a little subplot that's going on that I'm really interested in, the history of Malia and Peter. Really interested in that. Really hope it gets furthered this coming season. Scott, I really hope they focus more on his troubles controlling his alpha side, and I really hope that in, with the ensuing conflict with the Benefactor, this mysterious Benefactor, he learns how to control his alpha side more, channel more of his alpha power. I mean, in this season, when they were robbing the armored truck, that werewolf that they're fighting even tells Scott, you have the eyes of an alpha, but you don't have the strength. You're too afraid to use it. So Scott definitely does have all of this alpha power inside of him, but he's just too afraid to summon it because he's afraid of what he'll become. We've seen what alphas are on this show. They're dangerous, they're deadly, they're incredibly powerful, and he's just afraid of that. He never really asked to be a true alpha. It's just something that happened to him naturally because of his strength of character. And ultimately he made himself worthy of it, but now it's not really about being worthy of it. It's about learning to understand it and not be afraid of it. And that's a really great, theme they can bring up for Scott, him being afraid of his own power, him being afraid of himself and what he's capable of. And ultimately Derek showing him how to control himself and how to really harness that power and use it, when Derek himself didn't really have that power for that long and didn't even really get to use it to any real, true effect. Isaac not coming back, I was actually really surprised to hear that, but ultimately it does make sense for his character. Really, like, he was having another strong emotional connection to Allison, and she dies right in front of him. So, you know, it kind of makes sense that he just can't take it anymore and he'll leave. Allison's father is staying. I'm glad about that. Next season looks like he's gonna get some facial hair, grow a full out beard. You know, it's like now that his daughter's dead, he doesn't have to shave anymore, I guess. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens with him and his relationship with the pack. You know, Scott even tells him that, you know, he doesn't want anyone else to die. He's just so sick and tired of seeing people die. And then Allison's father tells him, I don't think you really have a choice in that. Like, you know, this is up to the benefactor, the villain of this season, not really up to you. I really want to see what happens. Kate coming back as a were-jaguar, I really want to find out how that happened. I mean, you know, it's basically implied that werewolves can basically transform humans into all kinds of shapeshifters, not just werewolves. With the Kanima in season 2 and now with the were-jaguar, I mean, like, you know, apparently, you know, botched werewolf jobs are just happening all over the place, and wares are just created from, you know, alpha werewolves just trying to turn people and kind of failing, creating were-jaguars and Kanimas. In terms of Kira, I really hope that we get more in depth into her personality and she becomes more than just the Mary Sue that they're presenting her as. I really hope they show some flaws with her. Maybe they show a dark side to her. That would be fantastic. Aiden dying, I really didn't care about it. Aiden's always been the douchey twin, the douchey straight twin, and Ethan's always been, you know, the sensitive gay twin who, you know, gets all the screen time because of his relationship with Danny and gets all the development because of his relationship with Danny, whereas Aiden's just the angry, douchey straight twin who, you know, dies, and for some reason Lydia feels really sad about that. I get it. I get her feeling sad about it, but I mean, like, I didn't really get a connection vibe between her and Aiden. I got a fuck buddy vibe from them. I didn't get a girlfriend-boyfriend vibe. I understand her being shocked and oh my god, but her, like, throwing herself into Stiles' chest and crying, I don't buy that at all. I feel like Aiden was very underdeveloped, which is, again, another issue of this season with them throwing in all these characters and the story being very choppy. Ethan leaving town, I don't understand it at all. The whole point of him and Aiden staying in town was because that they have so many enemies that want to kill them, and, you know, they're better off staying there and becoming part of Scott's pack. Now that Ethan's all on his own and his brother's dead, he's even more vulnerable. I have no clue why him leaving town is a smart idea. It would have made more sense if he walked out of the school and it showed him getting into a car with Deucalion and then the car driving off, and then it's kind of implied that, oh, okay, this is why he's leaving, because, you know, his brother's dead, he's kind of broken down, so he's getting back together with Deucalion, and now they're driving off and they're going somewhere to possibly come back in a future season. You know, I would really agree with that, and I think that would be a good idea, and it would show you that, you know, it does make sense because he's not going out alone, he's actually getting back together with the Alpha, you know, but instead it's just, you know, implied that he's leaving town all on his own, he's going out, he's going to be a beta now, and he's all on his own, which doesn't make any sense. I mean, the whole reason of him and his brother staying in town was because they have so many enemies who want to kill them, so now him being on his own makes absolutely no sense. And the reveal of the end of Danny knowing the truth the whole time was absolutely fantastic. I really hope that Keahu gets to play a bigger role. I really hope that he gets more screen time, and I'm really hoping that, you know, in the future, again, I know you guys are probably going to roll your eyes, but I really hope that him and Stiles have kind of a plot going on together. If anything, because they're both the normal humans who just have knowledge about this and are both very intelligent. We've seen Danny's intelligence before. It's been brought up. I really hope that it gets utilized in the future. I really hope that him and Stiles have to team up to do something. And again, I really hope that they explore a bisexual angle with Stiles, because I think that would be great for his character to really explore that, go into that. I really hope that Danny does play a bigger role in the plot, because I've been loving his interactions. Keahu does a great job so well, and I think that Keahu can do range if you give him a damn chance. So hope Keahu and Danny get more screen time and get more of a point in the plot, and I'm really hoping that people are saying that he might be something supernatural. I don't think so. I think he's just human, and I think that he is just so smart that he just figured this all out and has basically been watching Scott and Stiles and everybody else acting like they're acting cool, when really he's in his head and he's just figuring all this out. And I really hope that it doesn't reveal that he's known about this forever. I really hope that it's revealed that he basically figured all of this out, like in season 1 or in season 2. That, like, all this weird shit was happening, he did research, connected everything, and just, like, ingeniously figured everything out. Like, you know, Scott and all these people are werewolves, and, like, oh, there's a Kanima running around killing people, and oh, there's a Darok running around killing people, and he basically just put all this together himself in his head, and has been, like, just, you know, ingeniously figuring all this out while staying out of it, because he understands that he's a human who can't really do anything, so he doesn't really have any business getting involved, but he's just figuring everything out. I think that would be great, and I think that would even provide an even greater connection for him and Stiles if you're going to go that route, but whatever. Now, in terms of possible supernaturals, the other character they introduced this season was Deputy Parrish. I definitely think he's something supernatural. He's definitely something. Obviously something not too powerful, because when the Oni invaded the police station, he got seriously injured along with everybody else. But I do think that he is definitely something supernatural, especially with this whole, oh, I just felt like a pull coming to this town to work here. Definitely, yeah, Deputy Parrish is definitely something supernatural. As to what he is, honestly, we have no clue. The only hint we got to him being supernatural was that whole line about him, you know, being drawn to the town. With Derek next season and Kate, I'm praying that we get flashbacks as to their interactions, exactly the specifics of what happened with him and Kate and the Hale House fire and everything. What the hell went down? What happened? Why did it happen? How did it happen? I really want to see that. So with Derek and Kate next season, I really want to see them play off each other, hate each other, and then kind of have angry sex, and then, you know, we just get a really in-depth look at just what the fuck happened back then. Like when we got the Derek flashbacks in season 3A, and we found out about his first love, Paige, and all that horribleness with him having to mercy kill her after the botched turn. I really hope that, you know, we get something similar where we get a flashback into Derek's past with Kate and exactly what happened back then. I really want to see that. Scott's relationship with his parents, his relationship with his mom is already epic, but he's going to have to go through issues with his father. I get that. And again, you know, 3A, the choppy story of Scott's father, all this builds up to he pushed Scott down the stairs and then ran off and never came back. That is so weak. I mean, honestly, people are saying, oh, there might be more to it. But they imply that there really is no more to it, you know? They basically imply that that's the whole story. And I just can't accept that. It's so weak. All this build-up for why Scott's dad left, and it's like he pushed him down the stairs once, and Scott was fine, and he left, and never came back. Ever. That's incredibly weak to me, and I feel like that was such a waste. Again, I think that they should have done an adoption angle where it's like they pretty much, you know, been lying to Scott his whole life and that he's actually been adopted, and that something, and that his birth parents, like something has happened with them that really involves Scott that they need to inform Scott about. And then, you know, have this whole thing where Scott talks about like how, you know, if this didn't happen with my birth parents, would you have even told me? And, you know, you can get into this whole thing about how maybe one of Scott's birth parents was a werewolf or something, and Scott has it actually in his lineage or something, and that's maybe why he's a true alpha, not just because of his strength of character, but because it's in his blood or something. You could have opened up a whole treasure chest of future storylines and plots with that. Like, you know, Scott's birth family versus his adoptive family and stuff like that. But ultimately, no. It all just gets watered down to, I accidentally pushed you down the stairs when you were a kid, and it was so crazy that I just left and never came back. Really? So weak. So I really hope that he mends this relationship with his father, because his father is a dick, but, you know, it's like he was kind of the chemistry teacher's replacement, honestly. He was such a dick. But I feel like we do see that he does have sympathy, and he does have empathy, and, you know, those moments that he has with Scott's mom in the end where she makes him promise to stay, and he'll say that he'll stay, it does show that he still cares for her. I am a little worried because I've always wanted Stiles' dad and Scott's mom to hook up, because then Scott and Stiles would be actually brothers. But, you know, I feel like Scott's dad swooping in, might be causing some problems, because, you know, it's implied that she still has feelings for him and he still has feelings for her. So I hope that doesn't ruin anything. Scott's dad, I think he has a lot of potential as a character, and I think that he could actually do something. But until then, he's just going to be another character that we have to keep the truth from, which is annoying. I mean, that's what I love about the show. All the adults, all the parents know, and they're involved. You know, that's what makes the show really great, as opposed to, you know, most other supernatural shows where the parents are kept in the dark, or in the case of Vampire Diaries, where they're just all fucking dead, and you have all these supernatural teens running around acting like morons with no parents to wrangle them in. But yeah, I love the fact that all the parents are involved, and Scott's dad not being involved, it's just like, oh my god, now we're gonna have to see everyone jump through hoops to keep the truth from him. I don't like that. The show transcended that, and now it's like adding a new character that we have to keep the truth from. Oh, come on. So yes, this season was very good, very entertaining. You know, I really did enjoy what they did with the Oni, and with the Oni storyline of them being, you know, basically kind of like on the good guy side. I loved the plot structure that we got with it just being about the one villain, the Nogitsune, and it's not so much about him being powerful, it's just about him being very intelligent, very strategic, having planned all of this out. It was more about, not so much about power. I think the Nogitsune is probably definitely the weakest villain they've come up against in terms of power, but in terms of smarts and intelligence, the Nogitsune, was definitely the most dangerous. I mean, he was just planning like 2-3 moves ahead of everybody. He was very intelligent. He, was the most dangerous because of just how intelligent he was, and the fact that there really was no reason as to why he was doing what he was doing. And I loved that we got back to like the season 1 simplicity of it just being one bad guy, one villain, one problem we have to solve, and that's what the season is and that's what this 12 episodes arc is dedicated to. Whereas, in season 3A, we literally had 2 villains with 2 separate plots and 2 separate stories going on. I mean, that was really choppy. I mean, 3A, I mean, that's what, 3A was just so jam-packed full of crap that, there's so much, honestly, that I kind of, have trouble remembering because just so much was going on because we had 2 villains, 2 plots, 2. And that's, one of the things that I don't like about season 3A. I feel like they could have split that up into 2 sections. 3A introduce the alphas, and then 3B introduce the Daruk, and now in 4A, we get the Nogitsune, and then in 4B, you can introduce, the Benefactor. So yeah, I really liked how we got back to the simplicity of one villain, one bad guy, one problem, one thing we gotta stop. Not two, not 2 like we got in 3A, or even in, season 2 somewhat, where we had, the Kanema, but then it swapped hands from Matt to Gerard, and then we had 2 different plots, 2 different things going on. Same monster, but 2 different villains, 2 different plots. So I really liked how this season got back to the season 1 simplicity of one monster, one bad guy, one issue, to that. And I really hope that this coming season, Kate is going to be like the Oni, and the Benefactor is going to be like the Nogitsune. We're going to have our little villain or whatever, but we're going to have our big bad. I really hope that we get that. And Kate working with them to take this guy down. I love Kate in season 1. I think she's just so strong, so kick-ass, and I really want to see if she's affected by Allison's death. I mean, I'm sure she's going to be, but I would love to see her give some dialogue about Allison's death, about how she's in pain and how it sucks and how she really feels bad about it, and she feels like she should have stepped in to save Allison, but she couldn't because of God knows what. I think that would be fantastic. Okay, so those are my thoughts on the 3B and 3B finales of Teen Wolf. Leave in the comments what you thought about 3B and the 3B finale. Did you think that the plot was good, but the story was choppy, and the villain was epic, but the expletives were just kind of all over the place? What are you hoping to see this coming season? Are you like me and you want to see certain hookups, certain whatevers? Just let me know. All right, good luck and love, comment, respond, peace.